everybody! So you might have seen in the last video that my mental health was really struggling, and I realized that I was really lacking socialization from quarantining so long. So I decided to start online meetups, or start doing online meetups. And basically meetups are, it's like a website where organizations and groups post events. And I only did online events and I only did free events, but they also have a ton more. But basically, I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of in mission mode, so I was doing like a ton of meetups. But I did everything from yoga and meditation to learning Mandarin, going to different cultural events. Like I got to celebrate Inbal, which is a pagan holiday, Chinese New Year, watched a lot of cultural dances. I also went to lectures and group films where I learned about historical figures and AI and real estate, and I really enjoyed learning. I really enjoyed learning new things. I even joined a knitting group. So some events were more social, where you talk, and some events were more like lectures, but both were really invigorating for me. And of course, not all of them were good, but basically I'm a huge proponent. If you're quarantining, online meetups is a great way to just socialize and learn, but still be socially distant. And if that's all you want to hear, you can stop here. But the next half of the video, I'm going to go in depth onto some of the meetups that I enjoyed or didn't enjoy. And to me, they were just, it's so cool learning so many new things. So I didn't screen record any of the meetups just for privacy reasons. And I did take some screenshots, so you will see some images. And you might see some images from sort of like free websites online that kind of represent what I was doing during those meetups. But the first I want to talk about, and the first I did ever since being sick, was laughter yoga, which actually is more common than I thought. But for the first ever knowing it, like experiencing it, it was really weird. So it's not really yoga per se, you just kind of sit. And it's about fake laughing. So you like force yourself to laugh, and you do these moves. And like one is like the zipper laugh. So when you zipper your mouth closed, you don't say anything. But when you zip it open, you go ha 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 ha. And there's a milkshake one. And you make the milkshake, so you shake the milkshake and you pour the milkshake, and then you drink the milkshake and you laugh ha 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 ha. And then each break there's like a dun 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 in between. It's like it's almost like like you're in preschool again, where you're doing these cute little moves. But the fake laughter was really weird. The ha 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 ha. There's even an angry one where you're supposed to angrily fake laugh. So you're like ha 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 ha. And you all do it together. But by the end, I did actually laugh, because you can see people on the screen fake laughing. But as my first meetup experience in this mission of meetups, it was a little weird, for sure. And personally, it's not something that I really like, and it's not something I would do again, but I am glad that I got to experience it. The second one that really stood out to me was this Reiki meetup. And I didn't really know much about Reiki. But basically, the administrator would take out a board, and every one of the participants would put in the chat or privately message her something they wanted to improve in their life or get better at. And there's different stones that have certain energies about them for certain issues. So for each issue, she would place a stone on the board. And basically, the idea of Reiki is just that the world is full of energy, and people are full of energy, and you just have to be open to accepting the positive energy, and she's kind of sending that positive energy from the board, from herself, to you. So once the board is filled, the rest of the meeting is just relaxing. She literally says, you could sleep, you can listen to music. Just the only thing is to be open to the energy. I really liked it. I might not fully subscribe to Reiki, but she also, she talked about how, like, what Reiki is. And I heard of it before. Some of my friends' parents practice Reiki. And they would tell me, my parents are sending you good energy. And I just didn't really know what that meant fully. But this was really educational, and I just felt good after, honestly. And similar to Reiki in a sense, my number one favorite meetup I've been to so far has been Qigong. It's run by a professor out of Rochester University, New York. And Qigong is like the umbrella over different types of yogas, sort of, one being Tai Chi. So I've done Tai Chi. I've done Tai Chi in group settings in China and in Thailand. But I never really fully understood what I was doing, all the movements. But in these daily meetings, he goes over, what each movement stands for. And I really like the Wednesday meetings. It's all about, like, the animal movements. So you kind of get to pretend that you're like a bear and you do bear movements. Or you're like a deer and you do deer movements. It's fun, and for me at my physical level, it's 100% great stretching. My body always feels better after it. And it's also just enough physical strength for me, not too hard, but does push me a little bit. So I just really, really enjoy his sessions, and he makes it fun. In addition to that, I've done several other yoga meetups that I enjoyed, but definitely my favorite was the Qigong. And then sort of the fourth category of meetups that I went to were informational lectures. There's really a broad variety of things that I went to. The first was sort of like a MoMA art virtual tour. So basically the presenter put images of different paintings from the MoMA Art Museum onto a PowerPoint, and he would go through them, explain the history of them, explain some of the artists that made them. And it was cool. It's very informational. I learned about Frida Kahlo, and the presenter was noting that as time goes on, you might notice more animals in her paintings. She wasn't able to have children, but she really, really loved animals. She also made this really cool painting set, one of her face and one next to her, which was just a mirror. And it was kind of like, she sent it to a friend and said, stand in front of the mirror and know that I will always be next to you. So I thought that was a really nice concept. I also went to this lecture about extinction events and global warming. So, there's a lot of talk right now about global warming and survival of humans. But what I actually didn't fully comprehend or realize is that there's been 5 noted extinction events in history. One, which is more commonly known, is the extinction of the dinosaurs. There's other extinction events that more involve, like, fish and things like that. But basically this isn't actually a new concept. Of course, as humans, we don't want to become extinct. But this has happened throughout history, and throughout history, it seems like most of them have been done or been caused through climate change or meteors and volcanoes. So that was just sort of eye-opening, but also relevant. And the final one that stood out to me was a virtual tour of the Sistine Chapel. This was really cool because it was, again, a PowerPoint, but it was done by a tour guide, like a real tour guide that would be giving a tour in the Sistine Chapel. She was, based there locally. And the nice thing about a PowerPoint is that you can see, like, images of the ceiling up close. So she would talk about how the ceiling goes through different stories of the Bible. And in person, it'd probably be pretty hard to see, like, all the details. But on the PowerPoint, you can see each slide, you can clearly see what she's talking about. And it just felt like, wow, this is like all the information I would get as if I was really there. So that was really cool. That being said, there were a handful of lectures that I fell asleep through. and that were really boring. And there were some virtual tours where I felt like it would have been more fulfilling if I was there in person. And the fifth category of meetups that I really enjoyed, as you can tell, I actually went to a lot of meetups. But the fifth category is films and comedy. So yeah, you know, you can watch movies and you can watch, you know, comedy shows on PBS or Comedy Central, but there's something really fulfilling about like being in a group online, like you're all live watching this happen together, even though, you know, you're not really talking necessarily. You can post in the chat, but it's just kind of a nicer feeling than just going on and turning on the TV. So the one comedy group I really liked, I was impressed. I'm not even like a comedian, I'm not a comedian for sure, but I actually don't even like comedy that much in general. But this one was just, I laughed, you know, and it's so nice to laugh. And actually, you know, it's pretty legitimate, you know, considering it's a free meetup. They had comedians. One was like the director of the International House Hunters show. I was like, that's so random, it's so cool. I also went to this comedian meetup that I just didn't really understand what it was, I guess, when I joined. But basically it put me in a situation where I was asked to read a script, like read a comedy script as a character. And I was like, wow, that's really not my talent, skill set. But I did it, and that was cool to like push myself, and I enjoyed it. You know, I wouldn't go back to it, but you know, I can say I read a comedian script. And the other meetup group I really like is it shows like kind of biopics of historical figures. So they typically watch films, and in the beginning, before the film, the administrator will tell you the history, the context, and he'll also go through what is accurate in the film and what, you know, is more of a creative liberty in the film. So it's really nice to have that, you know, pre-information before watching it. And, you know, I learned about things I definitely would have never learned about, you know, personally. We watched films about Buddy Holly and Richie Valens, and James Baldwin was a really good biopic, or like documentary styled movie. And Maggie Only, I'm not good at pronouncing it. So much history, so many people's lives, and through a movie, you know, it's definitely entertaining. I was thinking to myself, like, I could just watch PBS, you know, like these are kind of movies that would be on PBS. But like with the lectures, it's kind of nice to know that there's a community, and it's also nice to know that when the administrator gives context to each movie. And finally, the fifth category, which is a personal passion of mine, is cultural events. So I love learning about different cultures in the world and the diversity that we have. And through online, being a worldwide platform, you can really experience that from people around the world. A lot are, for me, based in the US, but still about different cultures. Sorry for my pronunciation, even though I did go to the meetup to learn, I just struggle with speaking. So one was about the Bhagavad Gita, which is kind of what they said laid the foundation for a lot of sort of religions around the world. And also, so they would read from that in Hindi and do their own translation to English, and then we'd have an English speaker, or first language speaker, read a translation in English, and then we also would have a person read the Dinosaurs, which is sort of another interpretation or translation, but in Marathi, and then he would give his translation and interpretation, and then everyone would kind of comment. So it's interesting to compare the Dinosaurs with the Bhagavad Gita, because there are very significant differences. I also went to a handful of events for the Lunar New Year. One was out of a university, and it was kind of just different cultural dances, cultural stories. I was really impressed by this Korean dance group. There was 3 females, and each dancer had 3 drums kind of blocked around them. And with sticks, they would do their dance movements, but they'd also do rhythms on the drums. And there was just so much going on, and they were so in sync. Really impressed. And another performer told Chinese folk stories, which was just really interesting to hear. I have a degree in comparative literature, also called world literature, so kind of all this stuff is really up my alley, and it just kind of inspires me, how much diversity there is in the world. And I also went to this event, which I had never been exposed to before. It's a pagan holiday, or pagan celebration called Imbolc, basically for the coming of spring. And this meetup was worshiping the goddess Bridget. So it was also an event that was open to the public. A lot of this group's events are private, but I reached out to the administrators beforehand saying, you know, I'm not a pagan, but I also really want to learn just more about it. So I attended, and it was very ritualistic. They did say, you know, like blessed be a lot, like over and over again, in different rituals. But I did appreciate that so much is connected to nature, you know, so much appreciation for the earth. One of the rituals was, you know, included like a bean sprout and just, you know, like planting growth. And another ritual I found really cool, or really interesting at least, was called Scrying. I'm horrible with pronunciation. But basically you take this bowl full of liquid, and then you pour milk into it. And then you look into the milk, and with guided questions, you kind of can foresee your future. And, you know, I'd only ever seen that in like the old, you know, on TV shows on Netflix about, you know, like olden times or whatever, or witches and all that stuff. But these were people, you know, like genuinely doing this practice now. And I just think that's so cool. And I'm really, really appreciative that I got to witness that. And would be interested even, you know, I didn't try it myself, but I kind of wish I did, you know. I just didn't have all the supplies ready. I also attended a few sort of Buddhist and other religion chanting events. And I had done these previously in university, just with different friends. And it's very intimidating at first, because, you know, you just see these people chanting and swaying and chanting and swaying, and it's like praying to a god, and very intimidating, very intimidating. But actually, once you get past the intimidation, it is actually soothing. Just, you know, like saying the words in the rhythmic way kind of does calm you down, and it kind of does, you know, put you in this sort of like feeling. So I do appreciate them. I actually went to quite a few, and again, I'm not religious, but I love that with Meetup I could try so many things and learn about so many things, all for free and all while staying socially distant. Of course, there were some meetups that I went to that weren't, you know, great in my opinion. Some, you know, kind of say, oh, learn about stocks, but they're really just advertising their product. Or, you know, I legitimately went to one that was kind of a pyramid scheme, where they like really encouraged you to buy into this crypto staking, but like the staking website had like no backup, and yeah, long story. But there were also lectures, you know, I think I said before, that weren't entertaining. And also Meetup, apparently there's a thing where there's like Meetup spammers, where there's these people that just enter a meetup, like a public group meeting, and come in and say all these like bad words or make these like horrible noises. And like, especially if it's like a meditation event, it's so obnoxious. And eventually like the administrator will kick them out. But it's just very destructive, and people, you know, whatever. I guess, unpleasant. But overall, you know, like those things don't outweigh all of the good and knowledge and just, you know, physical activity that I got from doing these. You know, I should have been doing them a lot sooner. It was really nice to just be invigorated again. It actually felt like I was in university, just going to different organizations, learning about different cultures, having everything be free, and these lectures, but with the niceness of I don't have to go if I don't want to, or if I fall asleep, that's okay. And sometimes I fell asleep not because it was boring, but just because of my you know, path to recovery. I get really, really, really tired sometimes, and there was actually a whole week where I was so tired I'd fall asleep through every single meetup, and some of them I was like, I really wanted to see the end. But that's okay, you know, it happens. But overall, I really am glad I did that initiative, and thanks for watching, thanks for following the journey. This was a long video, but check back next week for another video.